Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are going to be doing two reviews for this weekend, and we have Death on the Nile and we have Kimi on HBO Max. And so I was originally just going to do Death on the Nile because I didn't realize that Kimi was coming out this weekend, and my gosh, I loved that film. But first, let's talk about Death on the Nile. I have little time codes for you guys if you want to skip right over to Kimi. I just didn't want to split up into two videos because I didn't want to edit twice. And of course, this will be spoiler reviews for both of these movies, so that is your spoiler warning. Let's get on to Death on the Nile because this is a sequel to The Murder on the Orient Express, directed by Kenneth Branagh and starring Kenneth Branagh as Detective Poirot, or Poirot, I don't know how to say his name, but it is essentially following his character, who is a master detective at solving different murder mysteries. And Murder on the Orient Express was a film that I was super excited for because the cast was amazing. Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, a whole bunch of just amazing actors and actresses, and I was very underwhelmed by that film. And although I do think that that film was well made and it was well acted, I just didn't like the story. I hated the ending of the movie. I felt cheapened by the ending of that film. But luckily, you don't need to know the context and the history of the first movie to watch this film. And so going into this one, the first one was kind of forgettable to me. So diving back into this world, and you actually get a lot more backstory and character development for Kenneth Branagh's character. And I do think that this movie, stylistically, the way it's directed and the way the performances are just so much better than the first one. The way Kenneth Branagh moves the camera, it is just so clear why he is one of the best directors and why he's currently nominated for an Oscar currently. And so he is just such a phenomenal actor and director, and he acts his ass off in this film as this detective, and he is always endlessly entertaining as his character. And so at the beginning of the film, like I said, you do get some backstory for his character, and it's an origin story for his mustache, which is kind of funny. I mean, this movie goes in some over-the-top ways, especially when it comes to his character, because he is so lavishly over the top. So yeah, why not? An origin story for his mustache. But this movie really is about love and about the things that you do for love. And you get a little bit about his character and this love that he had, that he lost, and that's, you know, for other reasons he never wanted to get back into any sort of relationship, and he just fully dived himself into work. And so now you're on this ship on the Nile, and he's trying to solve this mystery, and it all has to do with love. All these different characters that love each other for different reasons. You have the main, the couple that is married in this film, played by definitely not controversial actors as Gal Gadot and Armie Hammer. But so you have these two actors who are the main couple in this film, and then you have Emma Mackey, who plays the previous fiance of Armie Hammer's character, and then you have Russell Brand playing the old love of Gal Gadot's character, and you have a bunch of different characters, a whole crazy cast of people. Letitia Wright, yet another non-controversial actress in Hollywood, but a bunch of people. And I think all the performances, everybody involved, have great performance. And I think there's some moments, especially with Armie Hammer, where he is kind of hammy. There's a scene where he's crying that is kind of laughable, but for the most part, the performances are really solid. And what I really appreciated about this film was, just following a classic murder mystery. This is based off of the novels from Agatha Christie, and you can tell that it's a classic, murder mystery story. There's nothing revolutionary about the script of this film. It's just very entertaining because the characters are entertaining. You're always invested in this mystery because the mystery unravels in interesting ways. And the film actually takes a long time to set up these characters before you get the death. So I think if this movie does anything revolutionary, it would be that. It's not like the first one where, somebody dies within the first 20 minutes and then the rest of the movie is the murder mystery. No, it takes a while, almost like an hour into the film where you get your first death. And as soon as that happens, then you're off on the horses, you're off on the races, and so many things are happening. There are multiple deaths in this film, and it is always entertaining. The entire film, I thought Armie Hammer was going to be the one who dies, and so I was trying to figure out who was the killer. So I thought Gal Gadot had some sort of plan to kill Armie Hammer because, he was so easily, threw away his old, fiance for her, and so just as a revenge for this crappy guy who is just a terrible person. I thought that was a storyline. I thought that's what it's going to be. It's going to be her and then Emma Mackey's character were going to be the two killers. And it's kind of the opposite, because as soon as Gal Gadot died, I was like, okay, then it's Armie Hammer and Emma Mackey. And I was correct in that. I was kind of pulled in different directions occasionally. There's one character who was kind of the friend of Kenneth Branagh's character, who I really liked his character. And when he died in a shocking moment, that was actually really affecting. And although, yes, I did predict the ending of this film, I don't think that falters the film in any way, because the journey and the how, it's not necessarily the who dies and the who done it, but the why they did it and how they pulled it off. That was really interesting. And I like all the twists and turns of how they use the red paint, and how, that's how how Kenneth Branagh's character, how the detective kind of solved the mystery because that red paint turned pink in the water instead of brown. All these different things, the way that they maneuvered the gun and the bullets, and how Armie Hammer was able to fake getting shot at first and then shoot himself in the leg later after he kills Gal Gadot's character. all that mystery and all that ways that they kind of maneuvered around and how meditated all these things were was very interesting to see how detailed it was. And there's some also misdirects with some other characters, pushing a boulder, almost killing Gal Gadot and Armie Hammer's character early on in the film. And so there's a lot of misdirects in this film where it makes you really suspect all these different people. And I think in terms of the script writing thing, in terms of a classic murder mystery thing, it really does a good job at, spreading your suspicion between everybody. And in terms of flaws of this movie, yes, you could say that the first half is kind of slower paced, and I would agree with that. I was kind of invested because I was actually interested in these characters, and I appreciated the fact that they took their time to actually develop these characters and to set up these characters before the murder happened, especially Gal Gadot's character. You need to care about her before they just kill her off, unlike Johnny Depp's character in the first one. You didn't care about him whatsoever, but when she dies, again, it's a genuinely shocking moment because I didn't think she was the one who was going to die. And so there's all these different elements in the first half that are so important for the second half of the film. And yes, it may be slow for some people, but I appreciated that. And in terms of some visual effects, yes, there's a lot of obvious green screen in this thing. And I'm not going to fault the movie for some unfinished VFX and for the work that these VFX artists just didn't have the time to do because the story was investing enough for me to not care. That is that movie. I really enjoyed it. What do you guys think of it? Definitely comment down below. And let's just get into Kimi, because Kimi is a movie that I remember watching a trailer at some point, but I was kind of watching, I don't think I watched the trailer with sound. It was just like on my phone and I was like at school or something like that, and I just watched the visuals of it. And it's directed by Steven Soderbergh, who I love him as a director. He's done some great films. Most recently he did Unsane, which I had the poster for, but I lost it, which I'm very upset about. But I loved that film. It was a very unique movie, and the way he deals with cameras in his films are always fascinating. He's a great visual director when it comes to the movements of his films, and I think this movie is such a fun and entertaining stylistic movie that is so anxiety inducing because of the brilliant character work done by Zoe Kravitz and Steven Soderbergh as a director. This film is so well put together. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. And again, I will be getting to spoilers for this movie, so if you have not seen Kimi, I highly recommend you guys check this one out on HBO Max. But let's just get into it. So the premise of this movie is, again, you have Zoe Kravitz's character who plays an agoraphobic, terrified of going outside and all these different things. She is a very interesting character to follow because she's extremely introverted. She doesn't want to go outside. She doesn't want to talk to people. If she needs help in her house, she has somebody yell at her from the other side of the door. She has so many locks on her doors, and she has a very distinct way of either walking around or when she's running, when she's nervous, when she's outside finally. Her arms always stay to her side. She doesn't swing her arms around. She's very, very nerve-wracking to watch her do anything. And Zoe Kravitz really disappears in this role. She is so good, and I think the anxiety that this film just kind of instills on you as the audience member is half to do with Soderbergh's brilliant camera work in this film, but it really is her performance. If you don't really feel the anxiety that she feels in the moments, and that performance doesn't sell that anxiety that she has in the moments, then this movie really doesn't work, because from a script standpoint, it is kind of just there are some moments where it's kind of on the nose, the things that characters say, the dialogue is not always the strongest, sometimes it's a little stiff, but the story itself and the script and the way the things go and the twists and turns are very entertaining. So she's essentially this tech who listens to different recordings from this Siri or Alexa type thing that kind of listens to everything that you say, and if there's an error message or if the Kimi thing can't respond to whatever you're requesting, then it'll record that little response and it'll send it to her, and she'll kind of go through it. And so she hears what could possibly be a sexual assault on one of these recordings, and so she freaks out with her past of her being assaulted herself and her history of why she's agoraphobic and all these different things that kind of triggers her mind, and she is terrified of this message. And as her trying to go out, trying to get people to realize in her company that this is a terrible thing, we need to do something about it, she's really the only one who cares about it. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch this character deal with her, the people above her, this woman who's supposed to, she keeps on saying that she's taking this very seriously, but you don't trust her for a second. Her boss doesn't care for a second, even though they all have that, face that they just have a smile on their face and they're saying, oh, everything's gonna be fine, we're gonna take care of this, and they don't do anything. And so it's really up to her when she kind of uncovers the mystery and she gets more of the files and more recordings of what happened to this woman, and she hears her murder on this Kimi recording. It is terrifying to her, and it is enough for her to actually make herself go outside, because she couldn't go outside for her boyfriend, nothing like that. She just was never going to go outside ever, but this is a moment that is so important to her, and that also kind of sells the fact that this is more than important. Yes, the thing is terrible. Obviously, it's a murder, it's a sexual assault, but for her character, it is so important to her specifically because of her past that she's going to get over her, her anxieties, or not necessarily get over her anxieties, but to face her anxieties dead on. And as a character in her arc is so clear of how she goes from point A to point B to point C. And by the end of the film, when she's taking out all these guys who has essentially kidnapped her and are going to kill her because of the information she knows, it is so entertaining to watch her go upstairs, get that nail gun, and take them all out. It is such a great way to take a character who is so scared of everything, scared of the world, to a character who takes everything in her own hands and is a badass by the end of the film. And again, Zoe Kravitz, I cannot say this enough. I'm so excited for the Batman for many reasons. Robert Pattinson mainly, Matt Reeves second to that, but now Zoe Kravitz. I haven't seen a lot of her work, but this one really sells the fact that I cannot wait to see her as Catwoman. I'm so excited for that film, and if anything, this film just elevated that. But this is a beautifully directed, beautifully shot, anxiety-inducing, really fun and entertaining thriller that is just great from beginning to end. The pacing, the story, the script is a little back and forth with the dialogue, but for the most part, I really, really enjoyed this film. So I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts on this film as well as Death on the Nile. So if you guys watch those films, comment down below and leave a like if you enjoyed my review and my thoughts on both of these films. And also if you want to see more reviews just like this one, like for the Batman, or I just reviewed the Book of Boba Fett and I did reviews for a bunch of Sundance films, definitely subscribe to the channel to see all of those things. I'm excited to talk about so many more movies throughout the year. I don't remember what comes out next week, but I will have a review out every single week. So thanks guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.